In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sanctifier. When Jesus initially called the disciples, it was a simple invitation. Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. It was a new job opportunity, if you will, and Jesus took them through a training period. They sat at his feet. They learned from him. They watched him perform miracles. They went with him into the highways and the byways, and they began to understand what this ministry that Jesus came to do was all about and what they were being asked to become a part of. And Jesus tells them, it's serious work. And as you go out, I need you to understand some things. I need you to undergo a radical reorientation of how you look at life, at how you look at this mission. You're going to go out, but don't think that life is going to be any different for you than it has been for me. The servant is not greater than the master. A disciple is not above the teacher. There's a temptation, I think, to sometimes believe that when Jesus calls us to follow him, to live in relationship with the divine, that it somehow or other creates for us a zone of acceptance, a zone of comfort, a kind of chosenness that we're not to have to live with the challenges that Jesus had to live with. So our first reorientation is of our own self-perception. Jesus does not call us into a ministry of accolades and popularity. It's not a ministry of niceness. And we will not be exempt from public ridicule or opposition. Jesus calls us to understand in new ways what it means to be his disciples, the cost that we will have to undergo, to begin to reorient ourselves to view life through the lens of Christ's life. It is a call to radical obedience, even when the world turns against you, even when the world rejects your message. Oh, of course, none of us here today are shocked, as maybe the disciples were back then, to hear that families can be the cause of great conflict. But in Jesus' day, the principal way people thought of themselves was as part of their group, their family, their tribe. To be separated from one's family was to lose one's primary identity, one's security. It was the way the culture had of offering protection from one generation to the next. And I know that certainly there are those of us who never felt security from their family. They know that belonging to a family is no guarantee of protection and guidance. But I don't think that Jesus is necessarily talking about the ordinary or extraordinary dysfunctions or cruelties of family life. Nor is he anti-family. Does discipleship demand that we abruptly break with our families? Or is Jesus pointing to a different shift? Maybe he's talking about the divisions and conflicts that occur between parents and children, brothers, sisters, husbands, and wives, when the individual soul awakens and discovers its connection to something much deeper than before. The process of understanding one's divine origins. Perhaps Jesus' warnings to his disciples today are illustrations of what he's learning along his own divination process. It's like education in the field. He warns that following our own process of divination, of which Jesus is the working model of deepening in love of God and accessing that source within us, will probably mean a break with who we have considered ourselves to be up to that point. When we begin to access our connection to the source of love and of creativity, we begin to discover our heart's purpose. And this may come in conflict with what our families or our groups desire from us and consider to be of value. Jesus, though, is calling us to a deeper, more personal mystery, which is at the heart of each human life, what we were born to manifest. He uses jarring images of families rejecting one another, of coming persecutions, even death, to strip away our own narrow self-perceptions based on how others perceive us. He wants us to see ourselves with new eyes and to love what it is we see. Whatever it is that prevents us from answering his call must be called into question. That is the risk of discipleship. Jesus' work as peacemaker often makes things worse before they get better. When you're going to address the things that make for peace, address the underlying injustices, the wrongs, the underlying unacknowledged prejudice and hate and evil and fear that's lurking in people's hearts, they're probably not going to say, "Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I didn't know I was racist or xenophobic or misogynistic or homophobic. Thank you so much for opening my eyes." No, that's probably not going to happen. And Jesus warns us, don't think that my coming is going to make everything nice. No. And not only that, the trouble is going to be in the family. And the trouble is going to be a generational conflict, because the people who are used to the old way will dig in their heels. And Jesus says the things that I'm doing are really going to make some people upset, especially maybe the older generation, the older way of thinking, the people who are used to things being one way, and now I'm coming in and unsettling everything. When Jesus came, he was not a pacifier. He was an agitator. He was a fire starter. He knew that as the Prince of Peace, you can't produce and bring real peace without bringing justice. And justice is about power. And so far in human history, not many people have given up power willingly. And so confrontation comes. It was as true in Jesus' day as it is in our day. Sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. And that may also be true in our own lives. There might be things I'm unwilling to face, and the pressure has to heat up to get me humbled to the point and reduced to the point where I'm willing to face some uncomfortable personal truth. Things might need to get worse before I'm willing to face the reality. Just as division offers physical, social, emotional growth, so it offers spiritual growth. Jesus is calling us to grow up, to bring the division that makes that growth possible. For our part, we're being asked to re-examine our relationships and the priorities that we have given to them. We're being asked to choose our relationship with God, with that source of our being, to the exclusion of all other people, places, objects, as that one relationship that finally gives us our truest and most authentic identity. This is the division that loses nothing and gains everything. The division does not diminish or reject others. Instead, it offers wholeness and perfection. It is the division that transforms our lives and makes sacred all other relationships and will eventually bring healing to the world. Amen.